We are super excited to be in Davos in 2023 with YPO. We are here with amazing leaders, and right next to me is fellow YPOer Jack Hidary. Jack, welcome.
Tassos, great to be here again with you.
It's a real pleasure. Listen, it's been 6 months. We met back in May. So tell me, what has happened in those 6 months? What is Sandbox AQ doing?
Well, first of all, it's great to be with the whole YPO community. Back in May, we had a wonderful gathering of the YPOers. I think this week again, we're going to have another one. So it's a great community that comes together every single Davos. It was much better weather then in May, but we're back in the snow, we're back in the ice, and we're still going to have a great, great time. Since May, a lot has happened at Sandbox AQ. We spun out of Alphabet. We've grown in size. We've quadrupled the size of the company. We're in 8 countries right now. 70% of the people in our company have a PhD. And the additional ones have engineering backgrounds, AI backgrounds. It's a very technical team, but a team that also loves making great product. So it's a very interesting combination of product focus with a deep engineering and science background.
Science background, I like that. Now, I read the name and I read Sandbox AQ.
Yeah.
Right? Artificial intelligence, quantum computing.
A and Q.
Let's focus on that artificial intelligence part, because everybody seems to be talking about ChatGPT. That's artificial intelligence. Tell us more. What is it? How does it work? Are you excited about it?
GPT and the fact that so many people are using it. I have calls coming in from cousins around the world who don't know anything about technology and saying, Jack, what's with GPT? I think it's actually very, very exciting. It's a very positive development. Because now for the first time, people can touch and feel AI in a very tangible way. But the question is, where did all this come from? Why did it suddenly coming up now? The fact is that to make this revolution happen, we have to first go beyond the software to the hardware revolution that's underneath it. And that hardware is called a GPU, a graphics processing unit. Why graphics? These chips were actually made initially to make video games look great. So the next time your teenager is playing video games, thank your teenager, because of that video game and that GPU, we now have things like GPT and other fascinating AIs. So these very chips, initially made for video games, we realized in the AI community, we can hijack those chips and make them drive bigger and bigger models. Our brains have about 86 to 100 billion neurons, trillions and trillions of connections across those neurons. Now, with GPUs, we're starting to get more and more of these artificial nodes that mimic brain-like activity. That's why we're starting to see human-like essays being written, human-like, and maybe even better than human, pictures being drawn by DALL-E 2, by Flamingo, by Stable Diffusion, by Midjourney. These are fascinating developments, both in the image side as well as in the text side. This is just the beginning. When people are trying out these initial AIs and seeing, oh, maybe it doesn't know this or it got this wrong. You've got to look beyond that. That's like saying that a toddler who's 4 or 5 years old doesn't know calculus yet. Give it just a few years. It's going to get better and better and better. So when we're here in Davos in 2 years, let me tell you, we're going to talk again about these AIs. This is going to be eons beyond even just today.
Jack, I'm going to hold you to that, but I also now want to jump to the second part. We talked about artificial intelligence. Let's talk a little bit about quantum.
The Q, yes.
Yes, the Q, because everybody seems to have a vague understanding. But talk to me a little bit about, is there any standardization? Do we understand? Is it going in any particular direction? When is quantum coming? What are you seeing? And let's dive a little bit into that.
So it's a great question, Tassos, because AI has been bubbling up for years and years and years. A lot of investment, particularly since 2015. The last 7 years have been huge amounts of investment by particularly the big tech companies, by venture capitalists, by governments, a lot of investment. Quantum is just about 5-6 years behind that. And now we're seeing that investment start in quantum technologies. One thing to share with our audience here is that quantum is not just about quantum computers. Quantum computers is an aspect of quantum, but also we have quantum communication and quantum safe encryption. Very important for safe communication over the internet, with our phones, with our servers. And that leads to these new standards that you just talked about. July, just after last Davos, we had last Davos in May, just a few months after that, in July of 2022, NIST, part of the United States government, announced that the new standards are coming. The standards of how we're going to transition from the current kind of encryption that we use, that will be broken by quantum, to the new encryption that is quantum safe. That's a very important announcement that happened, because that gives us the roadmap, how we're going to transition. So in our phones, when you use WhatsApp and it says encrypted end to end, that encryption is the old encryption. that will be broken. We have to change all that encryption in our apps, in our phones. There's 20 billion devices that have to be software upgraded in order for us to be quantum safe. So quantum safe encryption is going to be one of the key themes for banks, for governments, for telcos, for pharma companies. Anyone with confidential information has got to start changing that. And now, just after last Davos, and now at this Davos, we can now talk about the new standards that are coming that will keep us all safe, and our patient data safe, and our banking information safe. That's the new realm that we're going into over the next 2-3 years.
And Jack, with that roadmap now happening, quantum becoming a reality, what products or what are you doing in Sandbox AQ that you're excited about? Have you come up with something cool? Because you always have something cool.
Yes, we do.
You have to share with YPO.
So one of the demands from the customer base has been, first of all, how do we know where our vulnerabilities are? So we have a product called AQ Analyzer, Sandbox AQ Analyzer, that analyzes people's networks. But the next thing that people ask us for is, hey, we want to start using these new protocols right now. Can you give us a way to transfer files, to share photos in a way that is super secure? And so here at Davos, we're starting to talk for the first time about AQ Transfer, a way to transfer files. It's a web-based application, very easy to use, free for people to use in kind of a freemium model, and that allows people to transfer files using the new post-quantum encryption. So it's the first piece of software that we're aware of that you can use in an easy way these new standards. The second thing we're excited about is what we're doing in simulation. So we talked about encryption, that's very important. But when we talk about drugs, developing drugs faster, better, cheaper, with higher probability of success, we have to simulate that in some kind of digital twin model. So let's say you're a big drug company, you say, Jack, I've got a drug here, maybe it's good for cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, any one of the major diseases that are facing us as humans today. Right now, on average, Tassos, it takes 13 years, 2-3 billion euro to get one drug to market. And 2/3 of drug candidates that go into clinical trial fail. So the question is, how can we affect that? How can we get drugs faster, better, and with higher probability of success? The answer is, we can now simulate them using quantum tools. By simulating them billions and billions of times with small changes, we can tell what is happening to that drug before we start putting it into humans for trials. So those are the things we're excited about right now. On the encryption side, new tools to keep us all safe and secure. And on the simulation side, to get us to drugs that are better, that have higher probability of success, and actually we can get cheaper into the market. So these are the two things that Sandbox AQ is focused on right now.
So Jack, two takeaways for me. First is I know I'll be sending you the footage with the new encryption, just to test it, 'cause it's cool.
Exactly.
And second thing, I'm happy to be moving out of biotech. Thank you for letting me know. But listen, you and I can talk really the whole day because there's so much happening. I want to close with one question that's important. Great, AI, quantum computing. How do you find people that are trained, that are qualified? Who's running this? Who is going to take us to that next level, that post-quantum?
Yeah. The question of workforce, the question of training, not just new master's students, PhDs, but also how do we upskill today's workforce? The majority of adults are in today's workforce already. They're not going back to school. So how do we upskill them on the job? Those are the two big critical questions that we face now. And we decided at Sandbox AQ that we've got to lean in to that. We have to make sure that 5 years, 7 years from now, there's going to be that workforce. If you look right now, there's already, Tassos, a supply-demand imbalance in the numbers of people. We know that happened to AI. So we don't have to really have a big crystal ball to know what's going to happen in quantum. This imbalance is already starting, and it's getting bigger and bigger. The key now is that we have to work with universities. At Sandbox, we're working with 40 universities around the world. Here in Davos, we just met with 2 university presidents, 4 more in the next 2 days, to work closely with the universities to say, how do we co-train industry and university together, co-train these PhDs and postdocs so they have the skill base to go right into the workforce after they finish their PhD or postdoc. For upskilling, we have to supply people with the textbooks, the curriculum, that right into the corporations. And so we're also working with Deloitte and EY, 2 of our big global partners, in upskilling people inside Deloitte and EY, but then working with Deloitte and EY to upskill people at their customers as well. So that's a way we can really extend and scale the kind of education we need, both at the university level, but also in the workforce itself.
And Jack, by the way, I remember back when we met in May, you gave me this beautiful book about quantum computing.
A light read. It's like a beach read.
Super.
A beach read?
I think I went all the way till page square root of 64. That's about where I lost
Unusual
you.
page numbers,
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit more about the book.
Well, Tassos, you just brought up the issue of education. You brought up the issue of the workforce of the future. I started to teach quantum topics back at Google, training Google engineers and then outside at universities. And I realized there was a need for a book like this. There was a need for a new textbook that would be up to date, that would be current, also very hands-on, where people can code right as soon as they learn the new concept. That was my motivation for getting this out there, and so happy now it's in its second edition because that gives me a chance of adding even more stuff, and so that was good as well. But the main thing is that we really need great curriculum, great textbooks to train this next generation. And right now I'm writing actually 2 new books. I'm happy to say, first time I'm saying it on camera. And so hopefully in a few years we'll be able to hold up a few more books because that's what this industry needs. AI and quantum are 2 of the most consequential technologies of our time. We need more folks in this field, not just folks going to school to do it, but also on-the-job training. That's where these come in.
And Jack, we're here at the World Economic Forum. What are 1 or 2 global issues that you feel should be addressed this year here?
Well, I would say there's a couple of ones that really come to mind immediately. First of all, just staying on quantum for the minute, the quantum divide. Now, you and I both know about the digital divide. Here in Davos 20 years ago, many stakeholders came together and identified the key issue of the digital divide. Those who had access to broadband, those who did not have access. And now, 20 years later, Tassos, finally, we're closing the digital divide. Finally, about 200 to 250 million people, a quarter, are getting access via smartphone technology to the internet. So that digital divide is now closing. But just as that's closing, the quantum divide is opening. What is the quantum divide? There's only about 10 countries in the whole world now that have a clear national quantum blueprint, a strategy to leverage quantum for their society. That leaves 180 plus countries without such a blueprint. That's the quantum divide. Here in Davos, tomorrow, at a special lunch event, we're talking about this quantum divide. And that's a critical thing to identify now, before this divide gets even bigger and bigger. What we don't want to happen is that all the intellectual property and all the trained individuals are just handing in 10 countries. We want to be more inclusive, making sure more people can benefit from this very, very powerful technology. So that's the first thing I would say is the quantum divide. The second I would say is coming back to the climate. Climate change is an issue that is multifaceted, needs many types of solutions to address it. One of those, though, is in new material design, new battery design. So we know, for example, that batteries are critical to storing renewable energy. But right now, we're still kind of stuck with lithium-ion technology. Lithium-ion is good for many applications, but we need to now experiment with new kinds of battery chemistry. Quantum simulation is one of the tool sets that can allow us to run through billions of permutations of different chemistries to find the right chemistry for different kinds of applications. That's one example of how we can start to address climate change with this kind of technology. So I would say quantum divide, climate change, these are the kinds of things we have to be addressing now. Climate change already recognized for many, many years. The quantum divide just beginning now. We have the opportunity to address it now before it gets much, much worse. So I'm actually very optimistic, Tassos, coming to Davos this year. And I think we can actually start to address it, but we really need all the stakeholders coming together. But great to be here with you.
Jack, a real pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you next year with more exciting developments.
There we go.
Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Tassos.